bucur să te revăd, Alexandra, și mă bucur să avem ocazia să discutăm în continuare despre vulnerabilitate. Episodul trecut am discutat despre vulnerabilitate și aș continua un pic așa seria aceasta de discuții pe marginea vulnerabilității, pentru că mă gândeam că vulnerabilitatea ar putea să însemne ceva în contextul adicțiilor. Și aș vrea să te întreb ce înseamnă să fii vulnerabil în contextul adicțiilor și cum poate influența vulnerabilitatea personală dezvoltarea unei adicții.
Yeah, thank you so much, Alexandra, for having me. It's such a pleasure always to be on your channel. These are great questions. Vulnerability is one of the most important aspects of addiction, is being able to be vulnerable and recognize that we do have an issue. And to recognize that even within ourselves or with our family supports or our friends, family, treatment centers, whatever that may be, it's a difficult process, and especially when you're seeking support or wanting help, because not only is it confusing and very hard to come by within yourself, it is also, it's quite vulnerable. It's, to be vulnerable, to be able to speak that you do have an issue, and especially when addiction is so frowned upon, and a lot of people don't understand addiction.
Ar exista niște trăsături sau caracteristici specifice care fac o persoană mai vulnerabilă la adicții?
Absolutely. Yeah, we do talk about, I think we discussed also on the channel before, and we touched very little bit about, but we did talk about developmental trauma as well. So one of the things is adverse childhood experience is an assessment that we do, and it's based on developmental trauma. And there are 10 questions there, like I mentioned. So any kind of trauma in your life, it can really, really have a big impact in creating more addictive patterns. Addictive patterns come from even coping mechanisms. So we find coping mechanisms to cope with stress, with other issues in our lives, with shame, with guilt. Therefore, we become addicted to that pattern, especially if it gives us a dopamine rush. So there could be a behavior addiction or a substance addiction as well. So absolutely, they very much do go hand in hand with trauma as well. We do see in our treatment centers where I work at, we do see most of our clients or / patients that we do see do have developmental trauma and have had trauma in their life or in their childhood. And that is really much aligned to addictive patterns.
Din perspectiva conștientizării, cum ar putea oamenii să recunoască și să-și gestioneze vulnerabilitățile lor ca să prevină, practic, să cadă în această capcană a adicțiilor?
Yeah, that's a great question. With addiction, we have so many different addictive patterns, like I've mentioned. So it could be even from work. A lot of people work so much and they think they're doing so well and they're providing for their families. But one way always to look within addiction is to see your relationship to life. So if your life is not a nice balance and one behavior aspect is kind of taking over other aspects of your life, that means that we're starting to lie, we're starting to hide, we're starting to manipulate, maybe even steal when it comes to substances or casinos or anything like that we're addicted to. Then we clearly have an issue, and that's causing us shame and guilt as well. So if we're behaving in a certain way, and after that behavior, and we're doing it multiple times, and we seem that we can't stop, or one aspect of it is referring stress. So stress and addiction is very much tied together. But with that being said, if we're having these addictive patterns that are really taking us away from our family, from our friends, from leisure activities, from work, maybe we're canceling work because we're going to the casino, or we're canceling work because we've had too many drinks the night before, therefore we're really, really hungover and we can't attend, then that is a great way to look within yourself. And I know it's very difficult, and I hear this from our clients all the time, but it's very difficult to be vulnerable. Because, it's not only being vulnerable with yourself, but it's that judgment of what is the world going to say. And especially, like I've mentioned before, addiction is very much frowned upon, and it's not very much understood. And so that we all have some form of addiction, like addictive pattern that could be mild and very minimum, that will not necessarily affect us in a negative way. or it could be very, very much an extreme addiction that is affecting us and taking parts of our life away.
Am vrut să întreb altceva, dar acum ai zis ceva extraordinar de interesant și aș vrea să mă întorc la asta. Ai zis, toți avem o formă de adicție. Și m-aș întoarce aici să te întreb dacă nu cumva, apropo de trauma de dezvoltare despre care ai vorbit mai devreme, dacă nu cumva cu toții avem un fel de traumă de dezvoltare sau din copilărie. Și mai în spate, de fapt, aș vrea să te întreb ce este trauma și cum se definește trauma în mod special, pentru că am văzut foarte multe explicații și am primit foarte multe explicații de asemenea de la doctorul Gabor Mate, care ne explică pe larg ce înseamnă trauma și știind că tu ai lucrat cu el, te rog să ne explici întâi ce este trauma și apoi să ne explici dacă cu toții avem o formă de traumă din copilărie.
Yeah, those are great questions. Yes, we all do. Most definitely. You know, unfortunately, we cannot be perfect parents and the world around us. And yes, we do. We all have some sort of trauma. And it could be from very small trauma to very big trauma. And that is another thing that people mistake when we say the word trauma. I feel like the word has been taken as in like a natural disaster or sexual abuse or physical abuse. But trauma is even a parent like yelling at their child can be very traumatic. And like I've mentioned before in our shows, we're born with only two fears, and that's falling and loud noises. So even the frequency of our voices alter brain development as well. And especially when we're talking about fear as well. So fear is also attached to stress, and that is your cortisol levels, which automatically affect your brain. It also signals the amygdala to signal and to protect yourself, therefore giving it the signal to survive. So with that being said, yes, we all have a form of trauma, although most people or individuals that don't have big traumas are able to still cope in a healthy way. They might still get angry, which anger is a secondary emotion. It's not a first, therefore we're feeling other things under the anger. We might have a negative coping mechanisms as in yelling, screaming, maybe throwing things, which that could also be traumatic to someone. But one thing that we have seen, for example, and this is also from Dr. Gabor Mate, if anyone has had the absolute pleasure in watching his documentary, Wisdom of Trauma, at that part, there is a scene where Dr. Gabor Mate is at a jail, and they do the adverse childhood experience assessment. So they ask 10 questions, and they put all the inmates in a circle. And they basically say, if you have experienced this trauma, which means any physical abuse, sexual abuse, beatings, divorced parents, yelling in the home, not having clean clothes, not having something to eat. So all of these things lead basically to survival mode. Therefore, the brain cannot develop. There's different parts of the brain that needs to develop. And therefore, if this is occurring, the brain goes automatically in survival mode, which means that we have different areas of our brain that are underdeveloped. So one thing that we've noticed is that in that documentary of Dr. Gabor Mate, all the inmates were basically going into the circle. They were saying yes to every question. And so we've seen that. We've seen a score between 4 or 5 or higher out of 10 initiates a person to be more addictive to substances or have addictive patterns. So like I mentioned, it's not just randomly, it comes from somewhere and it stems from somewhere. And most of the time it does stem from childhood.
Da, cred că vom dezvolta cumva discuția aceasta cu altă ocazie. Revenind un pic la vulnerabilitate și la adicții, poți să ne spui câteva strategii care ți se par ție cele mai eficiente de prevenire, dacă există așa ceva, pe care le poți recomanda?
Yeah, like I think one way to kind of look within yourself again is looking within the life that you would like to live. If you're noticing again that shame and guilt, if you're noticing that you're not living through your own values, and that's something as well that we can talk about later about values and how they align, then that's when we need to check in with ourselves and be like, okay, what's going on? What's making me, you do this, or why am I behaving this way? Why am I using a certain substance? What am I trying to cope with? Because again, addictive behaviors are usually a coping mechanism due to things that we're not willing to feel. And I say willing just because it's very difficult. There's a lot of emotions involved. Maybe we're very stressed. Maybe we owe money. We're unable to make ends meet. So the way we cope is we come home and we have like 5 or 6 beers. And we like that big buzz we have, and we go to bed and we kind of do it all over again. So the question is, what's making you have those 5 or 6, 7 beers at night? What are you trying to enable? What are you trying not to think about? And that's, the emotions are very high. We might feel very stressed. So one way not to get into, because there's a certain time where it's addictive pattern, but then the brain and the body gets addicted as well. So then you go as well with withdrawal. So now you're withdrawing from alcohol, which could be one of the most dangerous substances to withdraw from. So now you're going through a physical withdrawal as well, not just a mental one. So with that being said, it's very, important to look within yourself and see, where is this pattern coming from? What's making me do this? How can I stop this? And even if it's like, this is so silly, but we say this, like, even if it's like, instead of picking up that drink or going to the casino or whatever it is, even implementing a new coping mechanism, like walking your dog, for instance, instead of going to that casino, get your dog, walk him out, go around the block, come back home, because that's just a wave, and you're going to have waves. Your brain is going to want to survive. So when you're feeling these stressors, or when you're feeling, not being able to be vulnerable and discuss your issues, and, really worried about what the world's going to think, or even yourself, like once you admit it to the world, or you say it out loud, now it becomes real, so even with that being said, just knowing that vulnerability is the path to growth, and honesty within yourself is the only way to be able to cope with these, even before they become huge issues in our life.
Mulțumim tare mult, Alexandra. Cred că ne oprim pe tema aceasta astăzi și continuăm data viitoare. Aș vrea să vorbim un pic despre stres, pentru că este un subiect foarte actual în societatea noastră, oriunde am fi pe glob. Așa că cred că, cum ai spus mai anterior, vulnerabilitatea, stresul și adicțiile sunt corelate. Aș vrea să continuăm cu discuția despre stres data viitoare. Îți mulțumesc mult încă o dată. O seară frumoasă!
Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure being here. Have a lovely evening. Bye-bye.